Most Americans think retirement is about reaching $1 million. The problem? For millions of retirees, that number is already outdated. And the costs that made it outdated are the ones nobody warned you about. Here's what I've noticed after watching how retirement actually plays out for real people. The ones who run into trouble, the ones who hit their number and still feel like they're coming up short, almost never made a mistake with their investments. They made a mistake with their assumptions. They assumed healthcare would cost what it cost at 55. It didn't. They assumed taxes would stay the same. They didn't. They assumed inflation was something that happened to other people's budgets. It wasn't. And the most dangerous retirement cost of all? Almost nobody includes it in their plan. I'll show you exactly what it is, and what it actually costs, before this video is over. Today I'm walking you through what that retirement number actually looks like. Not the headline version, not the rule of thumb version, but the real one that accounts for the expenses nobody puts in the brochure. And I'll warn you, at least one of these variables is probably something you haven't fully factored in yet. Most people haven't. Stay to the end. The last cost is the one that catches the most prepared retirees completely off guard. Let's start with the number itself, because the way most people think about retirement savings is fundamentally broken. The standard advice goes like this: save 10 to 12 times your annual salary, or hit $1 million. Or follow the 4% rule, withdraw 4% per year, and your money should last 30 years. These rules of thumb aren't useless. They give you a starting point, but they were built on a version of retirement that looks very different from the one most Americans are actually living. The 4% rule was developed in the early 1990s, when bond yields were high, healthcare costs were lower, and a 30-year retirement was considered optimistic. Today, some people retire at 60 and live to 92. That's 32 years. The 4% rule starts to look a lot shakier over that timeline. 1 million generating 4% gives you $40,000 a year. Before taxes, before healthcare premiums, before inflation reduces what that $40,000 actually buys by year 15. For a lot of people in a lot of zip codes, $40,000 a year is not a comfortable retirement. It's a survival budget. And the problem isn't that people saved the wrong amount. It's that they were measuring against the wrong target the whole time. So what does the real number look like? Let's build it from the ground up, starting with the 6 expenses that consistently blow up retirement budgets for people who thought they'd planned correctly. Cost number 1, healthcare. If you retire before 65, you're on your own for health insurance until Medicare kicks in. The average marketplace premium for a 62-year-old couple runs $500 to $2,500 a month before deductibles, co-pays, or prescriptions. And Medicare isn't free. The standard Part B premium is $174 a month per person. Add a Medigap supplement, Part D drug coverage, and out-of-pocket costs. And a healthy couple on Medicare is easily spending $500 to $800 a month. Fidelity estimates the average retired couple will spend $315,000 on healthcare costs over their retirement. That's not a typo. That number fits nowhere in most retirement calculators. And that assumes no major illness, no long-term care, just routine healthcare for 2 reasonably healthy people. Cost number 2, taxes. Most people assume their tax rate drops in retirement. For many, it actually doesn't, or it drops far less than expected. Traditional IRA and 401k withdrawals are taxed as ordinary income. Social Security benefits can be up to 85% taxable depending on your other income. Required minimum distributions at 73 can push you into a higher bracket than you ever anticipated. Retirees who don't plan their withdrawal sequence carefully can easily pay $8,000 to $15,000 more in taxes per year than necessary. Over 20 years, That's up to $300,000 in avoidable taxes. That money didn't disappear because of bad investing. It disappeared because of bad sequencing. Cost number 3, inflation. Inflation doesn't just affect groceries. It affects everything your retirement depends on: utilities, property taxes, insurance premiums, home maintenance, healthcare, dining out. At 3% annual inflation, lower than what we've seen recently, $6,000 a month in expenses today becomes $9 out on $800 a month in 15 years. Same lifestyle, nearly $4,000 more per month. The retirement that felt fully funded at 65 can feel genuinely tight at 78 if inflation isn't built into the plan from the start. Most people know inflation is real. Almost nobody runs the actual math on what it does to their specific budget over 25 years. Cost number 4, home maintenance. A paid-off house is an asset, but it's also an expense, and a growing one. Budget 1% to 2% of your home's value per year for maintenance. On a $400,000 home, that's $4,000 to $8,000 a year. New roof every 20 years, HVAC every 15, water heater, foundation. It adds up quietly, and it never stops. Retirees who own their homes outright often forget to budget for the house itself. It's the asset that never stops billing you. Cost number 5, adult children and family. This one rarely makes it into retirement planning conversations. But it shows up in almost every retirement I've watched closely. A grown child going through a divorce, a grandchild's tuition, a family member who needs help with rent. These aren't planned expenses. They're the expenses that happen to people who love their families and who have savings. Studies suggest the average retiree gives or lends $10,000 to $30,000 to family members over the course of retirement. Almost none of them budgeted for it. You can't plan for love. But you can plan for the fact that love sometimes costs money. And cost number 6, this is it. This is the cost I mentioned at the beginning. The one almost nobody includes in their plan. Long-term care. The average cost of a private room in a nursing home in the U.S. is over $9,000 a month. Assisted living runs $4,500 to $6,000. In-home care, $25 to $35 an hour. Medicare covers almost none of it for long-term stays. Medicaid only kicks in after you've spent down most of your assets. Long-term care insurance has become expensive and hard to qualify for. About 70% of people turning 65 today will need some form of long-term care. The average stay is 2 to 3 years. At $9,000 a month, that's $216,000 to $324,000 from a single expense most retirement plans don't include. Not because they didn't know it existed, because they assumed it would happen to someone else. All right, let's actually build the number. 2 scenarios. Not because one is right and one is wrong, but because retirement isn't one size fits all, and the number that works for your neighbor might be completely wrong for you. Scenario A, the lean retirement. You retire at 65. Social Security covers $2,000 a month. You want $5,000 a month total. You need $3,000 a month, $36,000 a year from savings. At a 4% withdrawal rate, that requires $900,000 in invested assets. Add a conservative buffer for healthcare, inflation, and family support. And you're looking at $1.1 million as a genuine minimum for a lean but stable retirement. Scenario B, the comfortable retirement. You want $8,000 a month. Social Security covers $2,500. You need $5,500 a month from savings. $66,000 a year. At 4%, that requires $165 million. Add healthcare, inflation, and a long-term care reserve. And a realistic target for a comfortable retirement is $2 million to $2.5 million. Not because of luxury, because of longevity, healthcare, and the costs that don't show up in the brochure. Now here's what most people miss. These aren't numbers you hit once and forget. They're numbers you maintain. Because the biggest retirement risk isn't failing to hit the target. It's hitting it, and then watching it erode because the plan didn't account for what comes next. Here's what I want you to take away, and it's more important than any specific dollar amount. The number is a starting point. What actually determines whether your retirement holds together is how you manage 5 variables that most people never revisit after the day they retire. Your withdrawal sequence, which accounts you pull from first, second, third, and how that affects your tax bill every year for the next 2 decades. Your healthcare strategy, whether you bridge to Medicare efficiently, choose the right supplement plan, and budget for out-of-pocket costs that will grow every year. Your inflation buffer, whether your income sources are growing fast enough to keep pace with what things actually cost. Your housing decision, whether the home you're in is an asset working for you or a cost center quietly draining the plan. And your long-term care plan, not whether you have one, whether it's realistic, funded, and reviewed. 2 people can retire with identical net worth and completely different outcomes, based entirely on how they manage these 5 variables. The number gets you to the starting line. The variables determine whether you finish. So here's the honest answer. For most Americans, the lean floor is somewhere between $900,000 and $1.1 million with Social Security. A genuinely comfortable retirement in most markets requires $2 million or more when you build in healthcare, inflation, and long-term care honestly. But more important than the number is what you do with it once you have it, because the people who run out of money in retirement almost never do so because they saved too little. They do so because they planned for a version of retirement that turned out to be simpler than the real one. Retirement isn't a destination you arrive at. It's a financial environment you have to manage for 25 or 30 years, often without a paycheck, always against inflation, and sometimes against your own assumptions. What's your number? Not the one from the calculator, the one you've actually stress-tested against healthcare, taxes, and long-term care. Drop it in the comments. I'm genuinely curious where people land on this, and I read every single one. If this changed how you're thinking about your retirement target, hit that like button. And if you want more of this kind of breakdown, without the usual oversimplification, subscribe. New video every week. Take care of yourselves. See you in the next one.